Good morning. Here I am again from my breakfast nook with still more to say and more thoughts to share. So, as I've repeatedly said before, I personally believe that all life, yes, all life, including both Jewish and Palestinian life, is precious and should be revered. Yet, I am not surprised in the least that after witnessing the gruesome, grisly, and dare I say satanic attacks on Israel in the Middle East, now prominent powers that be, such as members of the Squad, are stepping forward and calling for a ceasefire, now that the shoe has been poignantly placed on the other foot, and it is their toes that are being stepped on and squeezed. Again, well, except for rare cases and in extenuating circumstances, I never ever condone the taking of life, especially the taking of innocent life. But when innocent lives have been taken and continue to be taken, it then becomes somewhat, I would think at least, understandable that a retaliatory measure was imminent and perhaps even in order. While I am personally sickened and sick by it all, I am neither shocked nor surprised at the left's apparent apathy toward current circumstances in Israel and the Middle East, nor am I shocked at their vocal support for Hamas and their call for a ceasefire as they now witness their side being brutally assaulted. Again and again and again, my heart bleeds and goes out to all people whose lives are on the line, on both sides. Those who remain perhaps innocent bystanders of a greater, well-organized, and well-orchestrated plan and conflict. The way I personally view this current catastrophe in the Middle East is that it is merely a representation, metaphor, and an exemplification of what is and has been happening and going on in all of society across the globe. This recent crisis merely showcases the devastation, death, and destruction that the powers that be, again, across the globe, have forcefully and strategically imposed on the people, on everyone, primarily the little man, the little woman, and the little people, the average, hardworking, law-abiding, voting citizens and their families. The attacks on small towns in Israel and along Gaza and across the Middle East are simply, in my personal estimation, an extension of the attacks across small towns, neighborhoods, and communities around the world, the same ones you and I have been experiencing for some time now, and at the hands of the ruthless terrorists who we the people call our leaders, those who have allowed this to happen. And now it's simply happening on a grander and broader and more deadly scale. This current war in the Middle East is simply the next level of atrocities that have transpired in recent years across the world, including the freezing of bank accounts of vocal Canadians who were against mandatory vaccinations and their arrest, the turning of a blind eye to the establishment of autonomous zones throughout cities in the United States, turning them into battlefields, if you will, the turning of a blind eye to the egregious, disgusting, and despicable tent cities that, replete with mentally ill and drug addicts, have invaded many previously prominent parts of the United States, destroying our cities and inner cities and life as we knew it. All this has given way to the next level of killings that have been part of our society since COVID, killings, lootings, etc., that have been flagrantly prevalent across the United States and perhaps across the globe, where hardworking people are suffering. Businesses are being shut down because store owners fear for their lives, as savage barbarians, thieves, and social misfits and misanthropes continue to tear down our society by tearing down our statues, our cities, and our way of life, by forcing their aberrant behavior on us and forcing business owners to willfully give up their rights to protect themselves, their property, and their merchandise, all so that pirates can run free. Why then would we presume as a people in general that the pariahs of society, which have been given carte blanche, including those who are gang members, the plunderers, and yes, even the maniacal terrorists and tyrants that we are now seeing rise up in the Middle East, why would we assume they would not see this as their open door, an open door to assert their warped and twisted ideologies with no consequences and no ramifications? This, as we have allowed them firsthand to witness that it's the good deeds that are often punished and the bad deeds that are justified, often even applauded, and that typically go either unnoticed and or unpunished. The terrorists in Gaza have been for years funded by the powers that be, the powers that have given them their power. And they, the terrorists that is, have been watching closely and carefully to the shit show that has dominated the world stage in most recent years. And they are merely taking advantage of the perfect opportunity and making a flagrant mockery of the world leaders at large. It is no secret that these extremist individuals have never had any limits and do not have boundaries. They don't play by the rules. Life to them is arbitrary, including their own lives, whom many willingly give up for their cause. This horror show is the fault of our leaders, universally. Those leaders who have turned their backs on the people and on the potential problems that the people face, including war. And what? All for profit. And those who have allowed this diversion to come to fruition in order to protect themselves and their own. Everyone's blood and the collapse of society and the world as we once knew it is on their hands. And while many of us tend to think that these heinous atrocities are contained to the Middle East, at least for now, which in an extreme sense and to an extreme degree it is, but in a broader sense, these cataclysmically catastrophic events are merely manifestations of the havoc and deprivation that our leaders universally have allowed to infest each of our nations, each of our countries, each of our homes, each of our neighborhoods, each of our communities, etc., 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 especially at the hands of the lunacy of the progressive lunatic left. Those who have allowed aberrant, abnormal behaviors to be not only accepted, but normalized, and all in efforts to promote their insane ideology. And all this while they watch from their safe havens and continue to fiddle while the world literally burns.